Hello there, DML gamer. So, since it is the end of week 2 of the current Ancient event, I've been getting quite a lot of questions from people regarding, how's my event progress going? Am I going to get Nihl? That sort of thing. And it's actually more or less quite simple to determine how well you're doing in this event, but I will go through it today just to give you a general idea of the sort of things that you'll need to be looking at for your progress to, have a good idea of where you're up to. Let's assume that the main goal for this event for you is Nihl, because of course that's the main collection reward dragon. And Nihl is of course that big exception divine ancient dragon with void, which I wish it wasn't void, but it is void. But in order to get Nihl, you need the 3 dragons as part of his collection. So that's Emon, the fire void ancient, Solom, the water void ancient, and Adatz, the energy void ancient. And since we are coming up to 2 weeks of this event, and there will be 2 weeks more, by this point you should essentially be 50% done with getting these dragons, or very close to it. So for instance, if we're going to take a look at the Dragon Board event, because you do need to get Adatz for this, you can take a look at the amount of pieces you've got for Adatz, but honestly speaking, that's not the best way to actually, generate or work out how well you're doing, because the pieces drops for Adatz are very, very RNG. So the way that you can have a more accurate view of how close you are to finishing Adatz for most players will be the amount of purple board chests that you've opened. And the way that you can actually check this is by getting to, say, a checkpoint and opening up a purple chest, because if you do this, then you will be able to see how many of these chests you've opened up so far. And so essentially what we want to do is we want to get to a chest, and then we want to open up the chest and see how many purple chests we've gotten. And since after a certain amount you are guaranteed to get Adatz, that means that by this point we'd hope to be at least about 50% done. And we're not quite at the end of week 2, but it's very close to it. So you'd want to finish just a little bit early to have it done. So if we open this up, we'll get our purple key, open this chest, and we are at 107 chests opened. You can see by this purple chest at the top, guaranteed dragon in the last chest. And so, based on this, you can see that I'm almost there at 50% done. The reason I'm behind is because I've missed 3 resets so far, just because I didn't want to log in. But we're also about 50% of the way through with pieces as well. And I was quite lucky with big pieces drops in the first week, which is why we're at 50% with pieces. But since the only way to actually guarantee Adatz through actually playing the event is opening up purple chests, this is the one at the top that you want to be looking at. So considering that we've got a few more resets before tomorrow, I would be on pace to get Adatz, but it's pretty much exactly 50% for me. So I'm just on pace, just. If you are well below that, say at 70 chests opened, 80 chests opened, I don't know if you're going to be able to actually get Adatz out of this event, being completely honest. It's unlikely you're going to get it through guaranteed chests. Maybe you'll get it through pieces, but it will very much become a game of luck as to whether you can get Adatz. And then moving on to the other part of getting Nihl, which are the ancient altar dragons. This one's pretty easy to work out. Essentially, since you need 2 of them, you should realistically have enough talismans to get 1 of them by the end of week 2. So that's 1,500 talismans. However, the problem with doing that for this is we've so far had 2 kinda iffy dungeon weeks. The first dungeon week being Burnout Week was terrible for a lot of players because burnout can end your runs really quickly if you're not really paying attention. And this week, some players, especially if you don't have ancients, really struggle in the dungeon simply because they don't have enough damage to take down those big shielders, and especially if you don't have good clear with energy and void, that sort of thing, then you're probably going to have struggled quite a lot in this dungeon week. So in that case, in my instance, I've got 1,174 talismans, which, it's not a terrible amount, but I would realistically like to be at 1,500 because that's the cost of 1 dragon. But since I know that these 2 dungeon weeks were pretty bad ones, if we do get better dungeon weeks, which there's not much worse than Burnout Week in theory, we should be able to make up the rest of these talismans in the last 2 weeks. So dungeon's actually a lot easier to make up for if you have gem saves, and like in my case I've got 1250, like 1250 just under gems saved. So I can easily make that up by going into dungeon, restarting, gemming, and just doing them over and over again. So dungeon is actually a lot more forgiving in that sense if you have prepared. The problem with the Dragon Board event is that you don't really get that. Like, even if you've got tons of gems, it's not actually going to help you with this event because you just need the event currency from this event. And the only way to get more of that, you can't just buy event currency with gems. You are going to have to purchase it with real money. And 4,000 currency is not going to get you pretty much anything. So if you wanted anything substantial, you'd need like 25,000 or 55,000, and that is a lot of money. Not recommended at all to buy any of these. They're really not worth it. But if you are like 30, 40 chests behind to get adapts, it's incredibly unlikely that you'll be getting it through any means, really. Especially if your pieces are at roughly 50% like they are for me. Because if you, say, have been getting insanely lucky with these pieces drops for adapts and say you're at 400 pieces at this point, then you've got a decent shot because maybe just a couple of bigger pieces drops, even some times 5s repeatedly, you can get adapts. But if you're at 50%, pretty much like 261 out of 500 like me, banking on getting it through pieces is not smart. So I did mention this in passing and a few times through the month already, but this is roughly where you should expect to be. Essentially, where I'm at, I'm slightly behind in Ancient Altar, but I can make that up easily, and pretty much 50% on the Dragon Board. That is where you should expect yourself to be as a minimum to get your hands on Nihl. Now, if you are way behind at this point and there's absolutely no way you're getting adapts apart from maybe lucky pieces drops, you know, you could change what your actual goal is for this event. Like maybe if you don't get Nihl, but make sure that you at least get a good Ancient, then that would be fine. At least one Ancient is good. I know that a lot of players want to go for Nihl because, of course, he's an exception dragon and he has Bless. And we love Bless. We love a high-statted Bless dragon. But not everyone's going to be able to get Nihl, unfortunately. So I guess this was just me wanting to put out a quick sort of reminder of where you should expect to be so that I don't keep getting asked that repeatedly as well. And it's going to be the exact same for everyone. Like, it doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing, as long as you're logging in for every single Dragon Board reset from this point, if you're at 50% of the way done, you should, in theory, be able to finish, assuming you don't get, like, the worst luck ever and waste all of your re-rolls on the Dragon Board, because, you know, people can waste a lot of currency just by re-rolling, so do be mindful of that as well. But, of course, we are going to be going into the new week, and we've also had Solo Adventure that can give us some bonus event currency, which I need to finish at least 6. I don't care about not doing 8, but that will give a little bit more event currency as well. We will have some mini events with some extra stuff in them as well, which will hopefully help you out. But that is where you should roughly be for this event, so I hope that you are there. If you're not, don't beat yourself up too much. As long as you get at least one Ancient, like look at all these Ancients here, as long as you get one of them, you should be able to use it in a team, at least for the short term. But we'll have to wait and see what the new events are like, to be honest. But I hope that that gave you some clarity on roughly where I would expect a player to be after 2 weeks.